So first and foremost, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all join us today for the webinar. And before we begin, I would like to give just a quick brief about the webinar, what we're going to be talking about. And this webinar is obviously done in the School of Business, right? So the purpose here is to provide the audience with an understanding of the region's key crypto market trends, what are the risks involved, where are the opportunities, and what's the potential for growth here, right? And towards the end of the session, we will also be talking about an education program that we are running in partnership with one of the leading business schools, which is obviously the McDonald School of Business, and how participants of the program can benefit in their career ahead through this program. Okay, we'll talk about this towards the end of the program. So I would now like to introduce our panelists for today. Firstly, we have Professor James Angel from Georgetown University. He has a specialty in financial market structure and regulation, and he has been with the faculty main investment as well as fintech, right? We also have with us Tabish, Shoaib, who is the global head of operations at Rain, and I'm sure most of our audience is familiar with Rain, which is the cryptocurrency exchange. But just to give you a quick background on them, they started out in the sandbox here in Bahrain and were the first crypto company to graduate from the sandbox itself. And they actually started as residents here at Bahrain FinTech Bay, and they later grew to be one of the most successful crypto asset brokerage firms that we know today in Bahrain. So thank you, Tabish, for being here as well. And lastly, we have Ahmed Almulla. He is the alumnus of the Georgetown FinTech Program, and he currently works at Benefit. And being a part of the program, I'm sure, Ahmed, you have a lot of interesting things to share with us, and we're really looking forward to hearing that from you. So without any further delay, I think let's just get right into discussion of the rise of crypto assets in the Middle East. So I would first like to begin with Professor Jim. Could you please give us a quick intro to what cryptocurrency is, what it is, and then how it became a phenomenon here in the Middle East? Just a bit of,
With pleasure. Cryptocurrencies are part of what we call digital assets. And think about reinventing money so that the money is actually programmable and not just transferable. So a cryptocurrency, like physical cash, can be transferred person to person around the clock, around the world. And that's what makes it so much more useful than either physical pieces of paper or legacy currencies that actually have to deal with a slow and obsolete payment infrastructure. So there are many things you can do with it for a number of reasons. For one thing, with a blockchain, you have an immutable record of transactions. And this is very useful for accountability. You also have the ability to build on these blockchains and use smart contracts, for example. And indeed, if you look at a lot of what's been done in Ethereum and other places, you'll see that the sky is the limit because you can actually have the money or have the digital asset do all kinds of amazing and wonderful things.
Right, thank you. So, Professor, now with the current situation of the market, with Bitcoin, it's very up and down every day. What do you have to say about the
Oh, thank you for asking. I view Bitcoin 1.0, as I call it, as a brilliant prototype. And time will tell whether it winds up in a museum like other prototypes or whether it evolves into something as useful as some of the newer cryptocurrencies that have come out. But we are still in the early stages, so we can expect very high volatility as we figure out what the long-term use cases really are. Indeed, right now with the current uncertainties in the world environment, i.e. wars in Europe, we're seeing a real test of cryptocurrency and looking at, is it really borderless? Is it really censorship resistant? These are some of the things that we are discovering in real time as we speak.
Of course. So you mentioned in the beginning that there are different sorts of crypto assets. There's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, lithium, and so forth. can you tell our audience how do you differentiate between these different crypto assets?
Yes. Some of these, like Bitcoin and Litecoin and Monero, were designed purely for payments to transfer spending power from one person to another. Others, like the smart contract blockchains, such as Ethereum and Cardano, were designed as platforms for smart contracts, where the cryptocurrency or the coin is basically used to pay for processing these contracts. And indeed, most of the tokens that you hear about right now are essentially tokens on the Ethereum or Cardano or other blockchains. There are also various utility coins, for example, things like Filecoin that are designed for file storage. There are a number of specialty coins, and there are also a number of meme coins, joke coins, altcoins of dubious value. And then we have non-fungible tokens. Now, a token is just a representation of ownership. For example, if you think about a stock certificate from the ancient days, okay, it was just a piece of paper that represented ownership in a business. Well, you can represent that ownership as a token that is recorded on a publicly visible blockchain. And you can use it to record things like real estate ownership, or the ownership of a motor vehicle, or the ownership of a piece of art. And so that's a lot of what's going on right now with the so-called non-fungible tokens.
Yeah. Funny you should mention non-fungible tokens. I have a question also about that going further. But thank you so much, Professor. That was very useful. Now, my next question is for you, Tabish. There are a lot of security concerns when it comes to crypto, and there's a lot of investment ambiguity, as we would say. So could you give us a bit more direction on what's being done in general to prevent fraudulent activities that are generally happening around the globe?
Sure thing. So just like any other financial industry or a financial tool, crypto and this industry also comes with quite a lot of fraudulent activities. And this is one of the things that right now the regulators are trying to tackle. The industry as a whole is really trying to do a good job that how can we mitigate the issue of fraudulent activities as much as possible. So similar to how there used to be credit card frauds under impersonation and stolen credit cards, this has also come in line with the crypto industry as well, where exchanges and brokerages which are not that stringent with due diligence, they will have customers onboarded who will use these stolen credit cards or have impersonation attempts in getting others to sign up and use their accounts and fraud these customers. So a very robust onboarding process is one of the most important things in order for us to tackle these issues as much as possible. A liveness check, making sure that the credit cards that are being accepted are secure, making sure that the name of the credit card owner matches rightfully the name of the person that has onboarded on the platform. So these are more of the compliance and onboarding bits that you can work towards in order to mitigate these fraudulent activities. And then by the end of the day, one of the most important things that the industry needs to work on, and we as RAIN are trying to quite actively work on, is education and awareness itself. Because by the end of the day, the more awareness that is being spread around these activities, around protecting our customers, the more those vulnerable potential customers will be safeguarded because of these efforts. So most importantly, it's going to come down to how much the awareness initiative is being spread across the industry in order to mitigate this as much as possible.
Of course, thank you, Tabish. Yes, I think awareness is one of the key things that we need to focus on, especially, we as an ecosystem builder, giving that information out there, you as RAIN being the cryptocurrency exchange, having that sort of information going out to the people to inform them of what's been happening. And, I think with the rise of crypto assets, it's also given rise to other areas such as RegTech, regulatory technology, and compliance solutions as well, as these things go, hand in hand, and it gives way to so many other solutions to come up in the market as well. So yeah, thank you for making those areas more clear. Now, the professor did talk about NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, and we're hearing a lot about NFTs these days, right? I'm sure people in our audience as well have heard about it in social media, celebrities purchasing NFTs, and it's all over the news, right? Give us a bit more of clarity. I know the professor touched upon it and gave a really good example of what it actually is, but could you tell us a bit more about NFTs and why do you think it becomes such a hot topic, especially on social media?
So in order to understand NFTs, one of the most important things to understand is the word fungible itself, and an easier word for fungible would be replaceable. So for example, you have a bag of chips. It is replaceable because for that 200 fills, we can have multiple bags of chips. But for example, the painting of Mona Lisa cannot be replaced. So that would be the ideal example of something that is more fungible in essence. So NFTs, by the end of the day, are these forms of digital assets that are non-fungible. So it's the digital asset bit which reflects to the word token that comes at the part of it. So as you guys have heard, and we have observed over the past 2 years or so, NFTs are really booming. It would remind a lot of people of the 2017 ICO era when Bitcoin was booming. It was becoming the new big thing. The financial channels, institutions, everyone was talking about it, and then there was the ICO craze, which was this more of a pump and dump scheme that went ahead as part of the Bitcoin news hype. I feel that during this particular bull run, it was the craze of NFTs that really boomed. Celebrities are talking about it. Big corporations are issuing their own set of NFTs. So it is something that is very interesting, but unlike any other financial technology or a tech product, it is in its very early stages. At the moment, it is being mostly used for sort of a pump and dump scheme. It's a great initiative. It is for the people who have read the book Ready Player One or watched the movie. It was a very revolutionary. It was a very ahead of its time movie, which gave you a concept of, regardless of how you are in this real life, you can have a digital identity in the digital world. So NFTs are a stepping stone towards that, with the acquisition of digital art. And of course, it has helped a lot of artists who have been able to bring forward their artwork without having to go through these regular auction houses, which do take a very massive cut for all these auctions. But with this, them being able to have this access towards these NFT market spaces, OpenSea, some of the more popular ones based on the ERC Ethereum protocol, but some of the newer ones that are coming out on the Solana protocol as well. So it is a very potential future, but at the moment, it is going to take a little bit of time for this particular space to mature as well. And in order for it to not just be a way for money laundering or just a pump and dump scheme.
Right. Yes, you actually answered my follow-up question as well on, what's the future going to look like? I mean, you do mention a pump and dump scheme, and currently, from what we see in the news and what's happening, it's kind of in a booming stage where it's really going up. I think where the ambiguity lies is, as you mentioned previously, on the awareness side of things. And Professor and Ahmed, please do feel to contribute if you have any thoughts on NFTs and where the market is heading, what's happening right now. Any thoughts you would like to share?
I'll let Ahmed go first.
No, you can go first, Professor.
When you look at NFTs in the context of financial markets, the history of financial markets is the history of bubbles. And whenever we have a new technology, people tend to get really excited. Then they get overexcited. And then you come back to the area of the plateau of productivity. where we start using this new technology at reasonable values. Now, the cool thing about an NFT is it is a way to record on a blockchain the ownership of something. And this has created the ability for things like artists to sell their art, but also with a smart contract that gives them a royalty on future resales. So if the art takes off in value, wow, the artist gets a piece of that. So that's just an example of how we can have, more sophisticated contracts or more sophisticated securities than we do now. And the sky's the limit for the possibilities here. When we think about corporate finance, well, those are actually fungible tokens. So we'll leave that for later. But for the non-fungible tokens, the idea that, hey, we can record ownership of unique items. Again, whether it is ownership of a car, a piece of real estate, or a piece of art, but not everything that is branded with an NFT is going to retain its value. So you have to think back and say, okay, other than trading, what am I going to do with this thing? And if you can tell a good story as to why 10 years from now you will find it valuable, then it probably is valuable today.
Right, of course. Thank you for that. Actually, we have a question from somebody in the audience, from Khurram Salman. He's asking, since we're talking on the topic of NFTs, he's asking, are NFTs just a facade? Why should we invest in them?
Oh, great question. Why should you invest in anything? You always want to do your homework and say, what is my value proposition? Why do I think it is worth more than the going price? If I think other people are going to pay more later for it, why do I think they're going to pay more later for it? Am I doing very short-term speculation, gahar, or am I making a fundamental investment in something that will bear fruit later? Those are the questions you need to ask. So in some areas, I think that some NFTs could be quite valuable. For example, real estate in the metaverse is an area where the real institutions are building real things there. And some of those could be quite valuable. Others, well, I think other people are jumping on the boom, just like they jumped on the ICO boom a few years ago. So you need to be very careful in any investment and ask yourself, what is the exit strategy? How am I going to get out of this investment when I need to? And why will other people be willing to pay me for it at that time?
All right, so we do have a few comments here actually as well, but we will get to them at the end of the session as we sort through them. I now have a question actually for Ahmed, coming on to you. So for the Georgetown FinTech Program, and I will talk about the program in a bit more detail towards the end, could you please tell our audience about your experience through the program? What did you learn? Maybe focus a bit more on the crypto space as well.
Sure, thanks Nawal. And I would also like to thank Bahrain FinTech Bay for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's such an honor. Thank you so much. So first of all, the program, I had a very great experience in the Georgetown FinTech Program. The program spanned over the period of 12 weeks. And we were presented with different modules during this period, tackling different aspects of the FinTech world, ranging from financial services, payment systems, AI and blockchain, and of course, cryptocurrencies. So I would say that the topics that covered in the program, they were very well equipped in terms of readings, in terms of lecture videos, various assignments that we had to do individually and as part of the group as well. And I found it very, very beneficial in terms of expanding my knowledge and enhancing my skill set, especially since I also work in the financial services field. I want to mention that there were also two separate tracks in the program. One was for the FinTech, mostly focusing in terms of the FinTech topics I mentioned, including cryptocurrencies. And the other track was for the entrepreneurship part, where we take a live case company and we analyze its pain points and come up with the recommendations. So the two tracks complement each other, actually. We also had guest lectures from time to time, and I thought it was very useful in terms of presenting the current trend of the topic, because it's very evolving and the current state of things. So the topics ranging from Islamic finance to the recent fintech applications, I found that very useful. Overall, it was a very beneficial experience, and I was really glad that I was part of it. Back to you now.
That's great, Ahmed. Great to hear from you. And I'll talk a bit in a bit. So now we just have a few questions here. We have Rabia Sayed, who's asking, how do you believe the regulations would affect NFT in terms of prices and overall demand? Feel free to take the question, anybody here.
Oh, great question. That even though the original impetus behind digital or crypto technology was to sort of move away from legacy institutions and governments that represent single points of failure, the reality is there are really good reasons why we regulate financial services. We want to make sure money's not stolen from our wallets. We want to make sure we're not being sold fraudulent things. We want to make sure that criminals aren't using the financial system to attack us. So there are reasons why in every country around the planet, financial markets are highly regulated and why people demand consumer protection. So we can expect, as the crypto or digital asset space matures, regulation to come in. And of course, it's very important to work and come up with appropriate regulation and not the obsolete regulation left over from the past. So the question is, what will it look like? But one way to think about crypto or digital assets is think of the crypto side as just a wrapper for what the asset itself actually is. Now, sometimes the packaging itself is valuable, but at the end of the day, it's what's inside the box that matters. And that's probably how it's going to be regulated. So if the NFT represents a piece of art, that will probably be treated by regulators one way. If it represents a car title, ownership of a car, then it will probably be treated in a different way. So it's the use of the assets that will eventually determine how they're regulated.
And just to add on top of it, so artwork is one of the very famous examples that mostly you get whenever you're doing any sort of anti-money laundering course or education, because it has always been, since decades, a very good and easy means of tool to be able to successfully launder money. Same now goes in the case of NFTs as well, where you have a bunch of dirty black money, you buy some ether, you come on to OpenSea, you buy this NFT, which is, a really popular one. And then there's going to be someone else that is in your network is going to bid a higher amount that is probably going to be your own money for this particular NFT. And then the price just keeps on pumping and pumping and pumping. So regulations are quite important under this aspect, which is the money laundering aspect that is being very, very strongly associated with the NFT market space at the moment. And it's better to have this, monitored and regulated. The sooner the better, before more and more people get affected due to this, pump and dump schemes.
Right. Thank you. I hope that answers the question that we had. Another question that we have is on crypto mining, where it's from Ali Kazaruni, and he's asking whether you think mining crypto will be obsolete. As more countries add more regulations to crypto mining, where do you see crypto mining regulations in GCC? Do you think it will be taxed or just banned?
Great question. One problem with crypto mining for Bitcoin in its current incarnation is the energy consumption. At the current hash rate, Bitcoin mining is consuming approximately 19 gigawatts of electricity. You do the math on that, that's the equivalent of 19 Chernobyl power plants, or 24 of the type of reactors used in the Fukushima plants in Japan. So it really is adding to the carbon dioxide pollution in the atmosphere. And we can expect, as the world attempts to decarbonize, that there will be pushbacks in various ways. So on the other hand, there's a lot of flared gas which is being vented or wasted right now. And this is one way of actually making use of that to do something. So I do expect there to be more environmental reactions to Bitcoin mining. China took a very extreme measure. They just kicked them out. Other places will make sure that if they're consuming electricity, that they are paying a fair price for what they are doing to the electricity grids. Now, that being said, proof of work is really very inefficient. That's the protocol that is used for Bitcoin mining. Essentially, the way proof of work works is you guess a big number that'll have a certain mathematical property. Technically speaking, it makes the SHA-256 hash of the block header have so many zeros at the beginning. Now, it's very wasteful. Ethereum right now is in the process of moving towards proof of stake, which is much more energy efficient. And then we have central bank digital currencies, none of which are going to use the Bitcoin proof of work protocol. So again, this is what leads me to say that Bitcoin in its present incarnation has to evolve, or it'll get pushed to the sidelines for a number of reasons, whether it's the technology behind it, or just the energy consumption, or AML KYC, or competition from central bank digital currencies. So there's a lot of dynamic stuff happening in this space right now. And it's hard to say which digital assets are going to be the most valuable ones 10 years from now. It will definitely be a very dynamic competition between them.
Right.
Also, to add a point to this one, just like anything. So for example, we had cars. Now, as we definitely have a lot more cars on the road as we used to have like 50 years ago or 20 years ago. Instead of getting rid of cars because they had such a strong carbon footprint, we are now moving towards electric cars to a more sustainable future. So I believe Bitcoin, most importantly, is gonna go through that same life cycle where there used to be a time it used to be mined on, Satoshi Nakamoto's own personal laptop, and then it moved towards these massive mining rigs. And as Bitcoin mining got more and more difficult, the hash rate got increased. So now everyone's talking about it at the moment that how bad the Bitcoin mining footprint is on the environment and how destructive it is. But it is gonna go through the same life cycle where now it's gonna move towards more of a sustainable solution of mining. And El Salvador is already looking into it with some of the more efficient ways of Bitcoin mining and more solutions, because as it's not just Bitcoin that is going towards a more of a environmental friendly solution, all energy is moving towards that solution, and that energy will also move towards more sustainable Bitcoin mining and other mining solutions as well. So I don't think so that this particular Bitcoin mining or overall mining is going to go anywhere anytime soon. It's just going to become more eco-friendly.
Okay. Tabish, we have a question for you. And given that we talked about, security concerns and fraudulent activities happening, we have a question from Hamdan. He's asking, how do we make sure we should choose an exchange who won't just vanish with my assets to buy crypto?
So one of the best answers is choosing exchanges that are relatively more regulated, Rain being one of them, because there is an added security layer with such an exchange that it is regulated by the central bank or any other regulatory authority of that particular country. How strict or more regulated the onboarding flow is, because these are all steps that have been put in place to protect the user themselves, so that bad actors don't get onboarded and there can be least amount of fraudulent activities. So of course there have been multiple cases in the past. You have Midgox, you had a very massive crypto runaway in Turkey a year ago. But that is why regulations in essence are quite important, because by the end of the day, it is a financial institution and needs to be regulated by the countries or the jurisdictions, financial laws and regulations. So the more regulations mature with time, just the way it has regulated some of the other financial institutions, such as banks, other financial bodies, and this is also gonna increase the overall consumer protection as well.
All right. So next question that we have is that it's an interesting question. So the crypto aims to reduce the transaction cost, which is not the case at this time. That is, the adoption of Ethereum by companies is compromised by its rise in price. Do you think the sustainability of crypto technology is under risk on medium or long term?
Oh, that is a great question. So when you think about what is the value of utility coins like Ethereum, where Ethereum is the gas that you use to pay for the execution of a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. Well, does that mean that the price of Ethereum is going to go up forever because Ethereum is really cool? And you can do all kinds of things like ERC20 tokens that are fungible, or ERC21 tokens for NFTs. But as the questioner points out, the higher the price, the less useful that particular platform. Now, there are a few other things going on there. There is a lot of effort towards so-called level 2 solutions, in which you do the transactions off-chain and minimize use of the chain itself. Of course, there are also issues with level 2 stuff. I don't want to get too far into the details there. But there's also competition in that there are plenty of work out there on cross-chain solutions and other competing blockchains. So quite frankly, if it's too expensive to process something on Ethereum, people will find cheaper ways. Just like if one automobile does not have enough fuel efficiency or it's too expensive to operate, people will gravitate towards others as well. So I expect to see a lot of competition in the digital asset space, both between blockchains at their level 1 layers, and also at the various cross-chain solutions. So that, for example, there are solutions that allow you to wrap a token on one chain and transfer it on another.
All right, thank you, Professor. And I think if anybody has any further questions, please do share within the Q&A panel. I'll just be taking this last question that we have here, which is directed actually for Rain. They're asking, what initiatives exactly is Rain taking to educate and create awareness amongst consumers? Now, to change the question a bit, maybe you can tell us about what users of, or potential users of crypto assets should do to educate themselves on the topic.
So one of the best sources of information that you have at the moment is the internet itself. Of course, this is not a very, it is a very popular topic, but it hasn't gained that much traction in the more traditional education curriculums yet. But it will be part of it as we move forward. Georgetown is doing a great job in raising that awareness from more of an educational point of view. And this is part of the overall awareness that comes into play with this. But one of the, some of the initiatives that Rain is really looking forward to is being part of events like these, so that we can, have a more one-on-one interaction with our customers, potential customers, and what are some of the things that we're working towards. How can consumers protect themselves from fraudulent activities? Apart from this, we are of course working on multiple knowledge-based articles and some other quite interesting educational initiatives that you guys are going to come across in the next few weeks. We're really excited to our customers and of course potential customers as well. And yeah, really excited for those.
No, we definitely look forward to that. Always good to see the things that come out of Rain, all the new initiatives. We do look forward to that. We have a very interesting question from Naif, directed for Professor James, and he's asking, if I'm a business and want to take advantage of smart contracts to sell services for NFTs, for example, question number one, where should he start? And question number two, is this doable? You think, given the current demand?
Great question. One of the things that we cover in our FinTech program is entrepreneurship. We actually have, two tracks. I talk about the FinTech side. My partner, Professor Galad, talks about the entrepreneurship side. And so where do you start? You start with customer discovery, figuring out what is it the customers really want? What pain points are you trying to solve? Now, now, is it doable? Smart contracts to sell services for NFTs. As far as I understand it, it actually does sound doable. That the metaverse has gotten a lot of hype lately. You can think of it as Second Life on steroids, or you can also think of it as gaming and entertainment. But that is a very valuable industry. And what is interesting is that by adding property rights, they're allowing people to build things within that space. And those people are going to need various services. Now, off the top of my head, I can't think of what services would be the best ones to offer, but I can see that Naif has some is thinking ahead in that area. And there could very well be some very good business opportunities there.
Yes. Naif, actually, your question, I do hope you stay till the end of the webinar, and I'll talk about the Georgetown FinTech Program as well. That is taught by Professor James himself, as well as a co-professor, Professor Shoaib. He focuses more on the entrepreneurship side of things. Ahmed, could you tell us a bit about the entrepreneurship track that you had gone through during the program? How did it help you? And given, Naif's sort of question where he would probably in the future, it's a futuristic question, and he probably wants to start a business in this area. How do you think this program could help him?
Sure, thanks, Nawal, and thanks, Naif, for the question. First of all, I want to say that I'm a very big fan of the experiential learning aspect of the program. So this is what the entrepreneurship track actually provides in terms of experiential learning. So actually, you're going to apply the concepts learned in the course on a live case in a live company that is going to be given to you and a group of students as well as a group. And you can analyze the actual customers' pain points. So actually, you're going to talk to actual customers of that company. You can analyze their pain points. What are their pains? What are their gains? The challenges that are facing the company, all right, from an outsider perspective, basically. So it is like a way for you guys, if you register to the program and get that case, it's a way to go through this entire process of starting up a company without actually needing to start up one yourselves. So you're going to go through all the challenges and you're going to give recommendations based on your analysis, basically. So this is one part of the program that I'm really fond of. And I would say that my main takeaways in this, in terms of the track, is basically you have to keep the customer in mind, basically. So this is one of the key lessons that also for you, if you want to establish your idea, you have to put the customer in mind. You have to consider their pains, basically. And you have to consider also that most businesses fail, not just because they lack the idea or the product, but because they build something that the customer or the market doesn't need, basically. So this is something that you go through in the course itself. You're going to study in detail, and you're going to analyze it very well. And it was something that's very helpful for me also in my career. Even if I want to establish my idea, I would go through the whole process. You get also you get exposed to the lean startup methodology, basically. So you're gonna study it through the lean startup product methodology perspective, which is very, very useful in this regard.
Yeah. Thank you, Ahmed. And in the interest of time, I think that will be it for the questions that we have. If there's anything, please drop your questions and we will try our best to get back to you via email. So feel free to do that. And I would like to thank all of you, Professor Ahmed, Tabish, thank you so much for being here on this panel today. Really appreciate the audience. I'd like to tell that I'll be going through the Georgetown FinTech Program if you're interested. And for my panelists, thank you so much. And feel free to drop off or stay for the rest of the session. All right. Thank you, everyone. So for my audience here, all right, so I will just quickly walk you through the program. Just give me a second to share my screen. I'd just like to show you some material on the program. So I hope you all can see my screen. Okay, so the Georgetown FinTech Program, it's actually, we run this in partnership with the Georgetown University itself, the McDonough School of Business, and the leading professors are Professor James himself that we had the opportunity to have in our panel today. And I think, you know, the professor always has some very interesting things to talk about, some very interesting ideas to share, and some very interesting concepts to discuss. So to get right into it, I'll just briefly run you through the program. It is a 14-week, fully online program run by the Georgetown University itself. And this program requires 3 to 5 hours of study commitment per week. And this includes live sessions, global case studies, very interesting panel discussions, and a collective group projects that you do in teams. It is an amazing opportunity to gain firsthand experience from leading industry experts and entrepreneurs. So the live sessions that we do have are live sessions hosted by the industry experts that we see here in the GCC, entrepreneurs of the GCC itself. So you get to learn firsthand from these entrepreneurs about their experience, how they went through the whole process, what happened, the whole A to Z, end-to-end journey, right? This program also includes a parallel entrepreneurial track that Ahmed just spoke about. This track focuses on the application of new and different entrepreneurial opportunities that we have available here in the region and beyond even that we would like to scale to. So overall, throughout the program, participants will learn about evolving customer expectations, the changing infrastructure in the financial services industry, as well as understand the key fintech trends and pain points that we have here in the market, right? To quickly walk you through the topics. Now the topics for this program are very diverse as it covers different concepts of fintech and the various emerging technologies, one of which we discussed today here about crypto assets. And there's so much more that our professor here, Professor James, would love to talk about in the program. You get to explore different key verticals and different cutting edge technologies ranging from alternative lending, blockchain, crypto assets, open banking, insurtech, regtech, artificial intelligence, payments, and so much more, right? So how will you benefit from this program? Why should you enroll in the first place, right? So firstly, the program will help you understand the potential of these emerging technologies. Like today, we just talked about crypto assets. What about all the other technologies that we see that are coming out? And based on your business need or your business idea, you will be able to have a better sense of what's happening and how to make those decisions, right? As a participant of this program, you will also be able to shed light on different industry challenges, acknowledge different opportunities, and recommend potential solutions through the use of these disruptive tools and technologies that you learn about. Furthermore, the program can also help expand your network of personal and professional contacts as you engage with executives, digital leaders, and other professionals from wide-ranging backgrounds in education, of education and industry across the GCC. And I'm sure Ahmed could attest to that once you're a part of the program, you get to meet all these different people, different seniority levels, different backgrounds, and it's such a nice way of putting it all together. You work in teams, you get to meet different people, and all in all, expand the network. And lastly, and most importantly, you will get the opportunity to learn directly from leading academics who originate from a diverse range of disciplines, backgrounds, and industries. You will be given the exclusive opportunity to meet and learn from fintech experts, entrepreneurs, and of course our professors that we have, Professor James and Professor Shai. They have some very interesting discussion points and very interesting concepts to share. Lastly, in the past, we hosted 3 successful cohorts and we graduated over 150 participants since 2018 across the GCC. So you will see we had participants from Jordan, Saudi, Kuwait, UAE, Oman, Bahrain, and so much more. So you will see that we have participants from different industries, different experience levels who are taking part in this program. And initially we used to have it as a physical, we used to have the first and the last modules physically attended here in Bahrain, but now, given the situation of the pandemic, we had to restructure, and now it's completely online, it's completely virtual, so anybody within the GCC at any point of time can access, and it makes it so much more easier as well. So for this cohort, the 4th cohort, we are going to start on the 14th of March. And for those of you who have joined us today from Bahrain, it is supported by Tamkeen as well. And I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and I'm sure my colleague Dua as well, Bahrain from the name of Bahrain FinTech Bay host, you'll see that she shared some information in the chat. If you want to learn more, feel free to contact us at info@bahrainfintechbay.com, or you can also go through the website as well. You'll see the link here below, as well as shared within the chat. And we will also be sending an email following this so that you have a complete idea of what this program is with more detailed breakdown of the program. So thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the time you all have taken to be here, our audience and our panelists. I hope this was useful. Really interesting things that we talked about, crypto assets, how things are moving in this market, what are the different I think after this webinar, a lot more is much more clear for us and for the audience, right? And I think, yeah, this was a really great discussion that we had. Thank you everyone for being here, and yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.